Aloha everyone! In this tutorial, we will be continuing with the attendance tracker application, and we will be using jQuery AJAX to incorporate other functionalities into this app. Just for a brief recap, here is our attendance tracker. It's really simple. We just enter a date and it'll automatically populate all the students that we have. And once I hit submit, it goes straight into the database. So let's go to our database. Let's go to the attendance tracker table. And as you can see, the data of those students were inputted. Great. So now we are going to add another functionality for us to be able to query all of the students with a where clause of date. So basically, I want to do a select statement on the whole data, but I want to select it by a specific date. So let's say it's at the end of the semester and I want to check who attended my class that date. So first things first, we have to figure out how can we create a query statement in MySQL to give us the data that we want. So if we go to the SQL tab, here this is a very basic select star from the table. Now if we do a select star and we hit go, we are going to basically get back all of the data and all of the columns. But we don't want that. We want to be a little bit more specific. So we want to say where the date equals something, right? So if I go back and I take this date, 03/02/2017, copy it, paste it in, hit go, and voila. It gave me the data only for the date that I filtered. So here's the statement. Select star from attendance tracker where date equals that. Now, I really don't care about the ID, but I do care about the student ID. So let's make this even more specific. Instead of a select star, I want to just do student ID, and I want the status. If I hit go, I get all of my students and the status. So before we take it even further and we do a join with the other table so we can get the name of the student, we are going to use what we have so far because it's simple and we understand it. A select from student ID and status from this table where this date equals this. Alright, so we're going to work with that and we're going to continue this application using AJAX. What is AJAX? AJAX is a very useful function that basically takes over the old way of extracting and sending data with forms. So we all know how to use HTML forms to send data and then to upload it into the database. But now, what's special about AJAX, we don't need to do a post back or what is known as a refresh to another page and then upload the data. AJAX is very simple and we just want to update small portions of the page and we also get to retrieve data back too. So here is an AJAX using jQuery, and this example is showing us how to use the get method. Now we're all familiar with the get. What is the difference between a get and a post? So I won't talk about that. But here is the general syntax. After studying jQuery, we know that having the $sign is very important. It's like a symbol of jQuery. So anyways, it's the $sign dot get. We use the dot get because we're basically saying we want the method type to be a get. And then here's the URL, comma, and callback. So in this syntax, there's two things that they're asking for. The URL in which the page is gonna go to, and a callback is basically the function to be executed if the request is succeed. And what does that mean? Well, just think of it how we used to originally submit things through forms. We have the action, here's the action URL, and now what's great, we get a callback. So here is an example. Let's focus on what's highlighted, not the click. So here, they are doing a request to this page, and the callback is actually a function, if you notice. It's a simple JavaScript function. A JavaScript function that takes in two things, the data and the status. So once this function, this AJAX jQuery function, performs this GET request and goes to this URL, what we're allowed to do is get back the data after it sends this request. So let's go ahead and take a stab at it. I'm going to scroll up here because this is the syntax that we need. So URL, we understand that's where we want to go. And the callback is, do we get anything back after sending someone data? A good way to think about this is like an online web service or an online API. So let's go to NetBeans, go to our attendance tracker project, and let's create a new PHP file. And I am actually going to call this web service. I'm going to delete these comments. And what am I going to do here? I am going to go to my database connection template, copy over everything, and paste it in here. And I'm going to do a format so everything's nice and formatted. And I'm going to start filling things in. I actually forgot my password. So I gotta go back and it's attendance, password, and attendance. Great. I'll just copy over this. Alright. So those are our database variables. And we're gonna keep this line to a template. And here, we are definitely gonna have to change the prepare SQL query statement and the bind values that we want to send in to this query. So let's go back to phpMyAdmin and let's look at this statement. We're gonna use a select, and let's go ahead and copy this. And I'm gonna paste it up here so that I can kind of sort of see what's going on. And to take out the red lines, I'm gonna just do a comment. So here, instead of an insert, I'm gonna do select. Select student ID. Oops, student ID. Careful when you're typing. Status from, copy paste this, from attendance tracker where date equals that. So, not so good when I pasted it in. So I'm going to take out the actual manual variable that I had. And what I'm going to do, because it's data that I'm supposed to be sending in to this web service page, I actually have to use the colon. And I'm going to call it date. So instead of first name, I'm going to do date. And then instead of a post, I'm going to use a get. And I'm going to make sure when I'm doing the other file, I'm just going to call the variable get date. So here, make sure the select statement matches the original. Select student ID from status from attendance tracker where date equals date. So this date, I replaced it using the colon variable name, and I'm naming it date. We're using the colon date because we are using the bind parameters way to query a SQL statement. So we pretty much got all of that going, and now I want to test it. So when we run it, nothing really is going to happen when we run it, right? Because we're not printing out any values. So what do? Here, the execute statement ran, but now, how are we going to get the data back? If you type in statement, and then we find the method that takes in our data, fetch, and we'll do a fetch all, then that is going to actually bring back our data. And what does this fetch all return? Let's go and try to find out. Fetch all. So fetch all returns an array containing all of the result set rows. So basically it's going to return us all of the fields and all the columns and all the rows. These are all the different parameters that you can send in. And let's find out what it returns. So this fetch all method, it returns a type array, which is great because arrays kind of look like tables anyway. So we're definitely going to use it, but we know that this value, this right here, returns an array. And a simple way to print an array is using the printar. So I'm just going to store this array into result, call it results. And after, I'm going to use a printar, and I'm going to send it in results. So the printar is kind of like an echo, but basically it's a function that's built in already that's going to automatically print out all the contents of the array. So let's go ahead and try to run this. And it's a successful execution even though we didn't send in anything. I guess because it was still able to do the query without a date. So now, remember, we're using get. So we want to use the question mark because we want to create the URL that we need. And let's type in the date. I think it was 03/02/2017. So this is another cheat way of doing it. for the get, it's basically the get, using the get method, checks out the URL to find out what's there. So before we even step into jQuery AJAX, we're going to do it the way that we know how to do it, just to make sure that our web service section of the code is working. And I don't think it's working. So 0303, 0302. There we go. So I typed it in, I hit enter, and it's doing a print R of the whole array. There we go. Cool. So student 1, it's kind of hard to read this array, but so it's sending us an array, and here it's at row 0, right? So this whole thing is row 0, because then this one, wait, no. This is row 0 right here, and then next one is the next row. So think of it like this. This is the first row, student ID 1, second row, third row, next row, next row, right? So this is the first row, and it's inside an array. It's inside an associated array, actually. Student ID, the value is 1. And then, wait, I think I'm reading it wrong. Student ID 1, wait, let's go back. Student ID 1, and then it's late. So row 1 has to be 1 and late. Okay, yeah. So it's 1. I don't know what this 0 thing is here. I'm not sure. But then here, then the status is late. So if we go to the next row, student ID equals, this is pretty much means student ID equals 2. Then here, status equals present. Looks a little different. Array, student ID 2. I don't know what this is. 02 thing is. Status present. Oh, I see what it's doing. Hello. So there's different for this associative array. You can do it by the column name, which is this value, or this is also basically the first column. So the first column of the row is the same. So these are actually the same. Student ID and column 0 has the same answer. So there's different ways to access the data when you're retrieving it later. So yeah, this is column 0 and column 1. Alright, so we got that going. Now, our web service page is definitely working. So now what we want to do is finally add AJAX. So I'm going to go ahead and go to New, and I'm going to go to PHP web page. And I'm going to call this search. Now in here, let's go ahead and set up our jQuery. So to quickly get jQuery, go to the jQuery W3 schools and go to any try it yourself and go ahead and extract this script right here, the one that's leading to the Google APIs, and to put it here at the top so that inside our original script tag here we can access what's inside here. So great. So now in this page, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to do kind of like the whole on-click event. But first, so this is very important right here. This get. We're going to add it in here, do a source format. And so this is the URL. I am going to actually paste the syntax. I think that's easier to understand. So here, this is the basic syntax. And let's grab this syntax and let's paste it here. So in this part, it's asking for a URL. So we got to change it up and we got to send it as a string. And we want to go to webservice.php. And then for the callback, it's a JavaScript function that takes in data and status. And for all functions, it has open curly bracket and a close curly bracket. So doing that, notice, see, this is a function, open curly bracket and close curly bracket. So now, in our code here, this is the data that we're going to get back, which is going to look like this. This is the data we're going to get back. And what we want to do with the data, we want to basically print it somewhere in our HTML element. So first, let's go ahead and create an input text box. And I'm going to give it an ID called date input. And here I'm going to create a button do an on-click to a function, call it search. So instead of having it here, I'm going to create a JavaScript function called search. And when they click on the button, I want it to go to search and I want it to do the AJAX. So I have my AJAX here, so I'm going to cut it and paste it inside here. Do a format. And I'm going to have an output area, paragraph. I'm going to give it an ID called output. So everything is going to be in here eventually. So now inside jQuery, inside this function that I have, I'm going to say that the data that I'm going to get back, I want it to be placed inside this p tag, which has an ID called output. So using jQuery, I will manipulate the CSS. Output.html equals data. So let's see what happens when we run this. So basically, it's going to say once you click on this search button, it's going to go here to the search function. It's going to attempt to do a get request and go to webservices.php. And whatever output that we're going to get back from web service, we are going to send the output to this output area right here that we have designated. So we're not sending any date yet, but we just want to make sure that we're able to connect to this web service and get back any data that is going to come back at us. We might not get back anything. So if we go ahead and run it, and we pressed it search. So right now we have our p tag is here. It's empty because there's nothing in it, but it's there. It's hidden. So let's see if we get any output. So we got that output. It's saying successful execution even though we didn't send in any date. Just like here in our web services, if we just run it, it just basically has that, and it's really not a successful execution. So we need to definitely change that. So coding is really about, testing this, running, seeing if it works, and then adjusting along the way. So we don't even want to output successful execution, because eventually we just want to output the array, right? So for some reason, even though we don't give it a date, this select statement is still able to run. It just doesn't return us anything at all because date is empty. If you go back here and we make date empty here, what are we going to get back? We want to select the student ID in the status column from this table where the date is blank. And what do we get back? I mean, it's still successful, but we don't get back anything. So now, when we, gotta make sure we saved it. Okay, it's saved. Now when we do it, it just prints out an empty array. I mean, if we didn't want it to print out an empty array, we could have checked to see the length of the array, which is always good. So if the array, and our array is called results, and to find the length of an array in PHP, we use the length. I think it's length. Is it array length? I don't know how to find the length of. Anyways, if that's there, then we're going to actually print the array. So quick Google search. Let's find out how to get the length of array in PHP. Length of array. Oh, size of function. Hello, size of function. So here we have a cars array, and they're using the size of. All right, great. So size of, wrap that around, make sure your syntax is right. So if the size of the array is greater than 0, then we are going to print it. And if it's not, and it gets out that awkward empty array, then it's not even going to attempt to print anything. So if we go to our web services page and we try to execute it, great. So we don't have any awkward output. So our web services page works. Now if we go to our search page, which is using jQuery AJAX, and we attempt to click on the button, nothing happens. No output, because we're able to catch it. So now we actually want date to be shown. We want to type in a date and then we want to hit search. So what can we do? Let's go back to our search page. And just for user friendliness, let's have a placeholder attribute. Give them an example. Great. Save it. And let's rerun it. Hey, didn't work. Placeholder. Oh. Typed it in the wrong area. Gotta be inside input. There we go. refresh, and it says enter date. So if we enter the date, nothing happens yet. Why? Because we are not sending data inside here. So there's different ways to send or get data into this URL. Here is the most easiest way. Let's get started. So we're going to create a JavaScript variable called input. And the input is going to attempt to get the value here when the user types it in. And to do that, we can use jQuery. So to try to get this value, we're going to use the ID field called date input. Date input. And we are going to say dot value. So in jQuery, we got the value. We're storing it into input. And real simply enough, we kind of just want to store it right here in the URL, right? Because using the get method, it's pretty much what's going to be on the URL. So we can say plus input. But don't forget, for your get, you also need that question mark. Question mark, date equals input, right? So that here, it'll work. So we want to make sure we send it the correct URL. And how do we know if this is we're getting the right data for the date input value? Well, to do that, you can also use an alert to say like, okay, well, what is this input? And we can quickly adjust this alert to say, you entered, clean it up, you entered, hopefully whatever they entered in the date input, and then it'll successfully go here. So let's go ahead and run this. Refresh this page, enter a date, and hit search. And search, we should have a pop-up that basically tells us that we entered this date, and then it'll go to the AJAX function. Great. So it picked up. And we got our data. Yay! So there's another way to also get the data, but this is a simple way to use AJAX get, because we can simply just use what we know about the URL and concatenate the string together, concatenate this URL together to make it a lot more user-friendly. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and there'll be a lot more videos so that we can learn the AJAX post method. So keep practicing, you guys. Keep it up.